Um, Leading the way when it comes to making sure folks who have disabilities are feeling safe and heard when dealing with first responders. It's called the Yellow Envelope Initiative, and Channel 3's Caitlin Nuclo explains why advocates say Connecticut's now leading the way.
I mean,
When it comes to making sure folks who have disabilities are feeling safe and heard when dealing with first responders. It's called the Yellow Envelope Initiative, and Channel 3's Caitlin Nuclo. Connecticut's now
We'd love folks to come on up to the table. So if folks want to join us, and then legislators will come in and out. But if you all want to sit up at the table, we would love that. Hello. And there are a lot of people on Zoom. Okay. All right, why don't we get started? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Human Services Committee meeting. This is an informational hearing, and we are so proud to be joined by members of the Council on Developmental Services. And so today is a busy day at the legislature. Our legislative session is in full swing, and so folks are in and out of the room. We also, as I mentioned, have quite a few folks on Zoom. And this is being recorded on CTN, which is always very helpful because that means our members will go back and watch. And so I think this is a very important conversation for us to have, and I'm so pleased you all are able to join us today. And so with that, want to turn it over to Christine Hansworth Strauss. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to fulfill our council's mandate. We're a resource for you. I am Christine Hainsworth Strauss, and I am the current chair of the State Council on Developmental Services. We are a council of volunteers appointed by the governor or legislators to serve in an advisory capacity. Our mission statement states the Council on Developmental Services was established to advise and consult on issues affecting the Department of Developmental Services, DDS, and its programs and services for Connecticut residents with intellectual disability and their families. In consultation with the Commissioner of Developmental Services, the Council recommends to the Governor and the Connecticut General Assembly legislation that would enhance and improve the quality of the programs and services provided by the department. Our council has 7 principles we have all agreed to regarding the issues we see as most necessary for improvement and change for the intellectually and developmentally disabled community we serve and are an integral part of our daily lives. We have seen significant progress thanks to HB 5001 being passed by both chambers in 2023. We thank you for that. The 7 principles we have collectively put forth are: 1. Support and encourage innovation of the diverse residential options to serve the full spectrum of residential needs. 2. Advocate for job development and support for those that are unemployed or underemployed, including removing barriers to self-employment. 3. Ensure continued support and encourage innovation of day services and employment for all levels of DDS service recipients. 4. Recommend increased respite service opportunities. 5. Promote fair wages for direct care staff in public and private sectors. 6. Consult on the development of long-term plans and funding for all individuals needing future DDS services. 7. Work to see transportation service options provided throughout the state for those whom DDS serves. In addition to your awareness of these issues, we have come today to provide information we think could be key in legislating issues around transportation, safety, paperwork that plagues busy families and limits employment growth opportunities for a community that is approximately 87% unemployed or underemployed. The Council has asked members to present these issues with some solutions that could be implemented with little or no cost during this upcoming legislative session. These are low-cost, high-impact changes for IDD individuals in our state. Pam Donnaroma, CEO and founder of Futures Inc., and I will be speaking about transportation issues that impact the IDD community. Michael Beloff, certified financial planner and chartered special needs consultant, and member of the Governor's Workforce and Council DEI Committee, will be speaking about the low DSS Medicaid asset limitation in our state that is impacting how and when our community can work and receive benefits. In the past year, strides have been made to simplify the redetermination process. Our individuals, families, and DDS caseworkers have had to complete annually in order to keep the services flowing for day and residential services. However, the asset limit is the lowest in the country and has not been changed, adjusted, or indexed since 1985. Deidre Toole, Stonington special education teacher and now transition coordinator, will be speaking to legislating uniformity across the state for some of our more highly communication impacted individuals served by DDS. Small changes in safety procedures in dealing with the nonverbal or impacted individuals might save lives and simplify communication. We have many council members here today. If they'd like to stand and be recognized. Some are also participating virtually. Thank you again for this opportunity. And now I'll hand it off to Michael Beloff.
Thank you, Christine. So we've come up with a number of small, low-cost changes that can greatly enhance the lives of individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families. The first, as Christine referred to, is to raise the Husky C asset limit to tie into the federal SSI limit. Currently, the asset limit for Medicaid, traditional Medicaid for the aged, blind, and disabled in Connecticut, called Husky C, is set at $1,600 for individuals, $2,400 for couples. This limit was set in 1973 when asset limits for SSI and Medicaid were set at $1,500, which seemed progressive at the time, $100 more. Then in 1983, the federal government raised the asset limit for SSI over the course of several years to $2,000 for individuals and $3,000 for couples. Because most states tie access to traditional Medicaid to receiving SSI, those states automatically raise their asset limits to $2,000. However, as Husky C is not tied to SSI, we did not, and Connecticut's Husky C asset limits has remained at $1,600. In the interim, 11 states have raised their Medicaid asset limit above the federal $2,000 limit, which is allowed by states. And with our neighboring state of New York currently having a $32,396 Medicaid asset limit. Connecticut is now the only state in the country with an asset limit for Medicaid below $2,000. A large portion of adults with intellectual disabilities are on both SSI and Medicaid. Tying the Husky, that creates different reporting issues and confusion among families in terms of how their assets have to be limited. Tying the Husky C asset limit will make their paperwork and record keeping requirements infinitely easier, costing the state limited funds because the extra $400 for individuals or $600 for couples would not drastically increase the Husky C rolls while making record keeping infinitely easier. The next is making it easier to keep Husky C while working. Connecticut is a work-first state. However, Connecticut has very low income limits to maintain Husky C and thus preserve the Medicaid waiver supports through the DDS, the Department of Developmental Services. To offset this, Connecticut has developed the MedConnect program, Medicaid for Employees with Disabilities, which allows individuals with disabilities who work to earn up to $85,000 and have up to $2,000 in countable resources and still maintain Husky and their Medicaid waiver services. In addition, the MedConnect program allows these individuals to contribute to tax-deferred business savings programs like 401ks without those assets being counted towards the Medicaid asset limits, allowing them to save for expenses in the future. However, accessing the MedConnect program has been challenging. The paper application form for Medicaid services, the WE1, has no spot to apply for MedConnect. When I've inquired on how to apply for MedConnect, I was told write in SO5 in ink because the Department of Social Services doesn't know the term MedConnect, they only know SO5. SO5 is DSS's internal designation for MedConnect. There is also very little explanation for consumers on how qualified accounts like 401ks affect Husky C after they stop working, and how distributions from these accounts might count as income in retirement, and how income distributions might impact their Medicaid waiver supports, especially once they must start taking distributions from their retirement accounts at age 75. It's also very difficult to get information and how working in general affects Husky. The challenge is that the income limits to access Medicaid depend on how you're accessing Medicaid and whether or not you're on a Medicaid waiver program. There are not good explanations on the government websites on how work and other impact directly impact Husky. So clearer explanations would make more adults with intellectual disabilities more comfortable that working a little bit will not eliminate the supports they rely on. In Connecticut, we have the ability to shift excess income to pooled trusts and/or Medicaid spend-down trusts so that earned or unearned income and still qualify for means-tested programs. However, it is very hard to get good information on how these Medicaid spend-down programs work in advance in order to take advantage of them, allowing individuals to work and earn more money. There are 5 benefits counselors available through BRS, the entire state. They cannot fully cover that whole state. Enhancing the information and making that information available to the public would greatly enhance the ability for individuals to continue working. Finally, clarifying ABLE provisions as part of HB 5001. ABLE accounts, which were created under federal law in 2014, allow disabled individuals receiving means-tested benefits to save money in an account that does not count as a resource for the means tests. In 2023, Section 59 of Public Act 23-137, commonly referred to as HB 5001, eliminated the Medicaid clawback provisions for Connecticut residents. However, the implementation of this has been challenging. First, it has been unclear whether the exemption to the Medicaid lien applies to any ABLE account in the country or just to Connecticut's native ABLE account. Requests for clarification have not been answered. Second, while the Connecticut ABLE account documentation does allow for a successor owner, under the current standpoint, only a sibling with a disability of the original person with disabilities can be a successor owner. In the absence of a qualified successor owner, the ABLE account provider waits for contact from the state Medicaid office to see if a Medicaid lien will be enforced. If not, they then wait to hear from the executor from the owner's own estate. The requirement for that a successor owner be a sibling with a disability is not federal law, and there are several states that don't have that restriction. This creates several issues when the owner of an ABLE account passes away. First, many adults with intellectual disabilities do not have a will and may not even have the legal capacity to create and sign a will. This means that anything in their estate, which an ABLE account would qualify for, will have to go through intestate succession, which can be expensive. Second, because most of the other assets of the individual disabilities will be subject to Medicaid liens, this is also most likely to be their only probatable asset. Typically, when the ABLE provider gets the request from the executor, they send the funds to an estate account. However, once the ABLE funds get put into an estate account, they most likely will be commingled with any other assets the Medicaid receiver has, tainting the pot and most likely making those funds sent by the ABLE provider subject to Medicaid liens. Therefore, getting rid of the whole thing we try to solve in this particular legislation. The simplest solution would be allow Connecticut ABLE accounts to have a contingent owner that was not a sibling with a disability or add on some kind of transfer on death designation. If that is not allowed under federal regulations, then make it simpler for individuals with intellectual disabilities to have a will or confirm it that placing proceeds into an estate account would not subject them to Medicaid liens. That would help to fully realize the impact of the 2023 law eliminating the Medicaid lien on able accounts. The simplest solution, just allow a successor owner. Other states do that. We do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind staying? I think it would be helpful.
Sure.
I'll try to manage the time. I think it would be helpful if we did questions for each speaker. So anyone, yes, Representative Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this like Byzantine real life description of a bureaucratic nightmare for families with adults or anybody with a disability. It sort of seems to me like we're trying to modernize a very sort of patronizing and infantilizing system where the person with a disability couldn't possibly be their own designator of a successor account or that kind of thing. So I would like to see this framed as, Madam Chair, a way of just updating and modernizing our policies to really reflect the self-determination adulthood that people and an agency that people should have over their own lives and certainly over this program.
And certainly Illinois. So the Connecticut's ABLE account is part of the National ABLE Alliance, which administers 19 different states' ABLE accounts.
Okay.
At least one other state in that alliance, Illinois, allows for a successor owner who is not a sibling with a disability.
Great. Thank you.
Senator Lesser, do you have?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate. I got some of your testimony because I was late, so I want to own that. Just a question first about the MedConnect program, which we've worked to expand eligibility for. You mentioned that there's no clear criteria for a form for entry. Are there states that we could crib off of that have? I know that the Ticket to Work programs that are in place nationally, and I'm just curious if there's a state that's doing it better that makes it easier to access for patients.
Generally, it would just mean adding a line to the WE1 form, which is the paper intake form for Medicaid, saying, I want to apply for MedConnect. That's all it takes. The online version does allow for that.
The online it's already on the online version?
It's already on the online version, but it's not in the paper version.
And it's the WE1 form?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We will ask our friends at the Department of Social Services if they could print a new form. To me, that seems doable, but that is what isn't doable is often a surprise. So we'll find out. Another question that was not in your testimony, I don't believe, we did raise a bill that would seek to codify the protections of the Americans with Disability Act on the state level. There are all sorts of concrete issues that are, more directly impactful on the lives of people in the state on a day-to-day basis than, sort of playing 10 moves ahead to see that we might need something. Do you see a value for additional protections for people with disabilities? Is that something that we should, spend some time looking at? Where would you rank that in terms of the?
It's hard to know where to rank it. I think especially from the employment side, understanding that individual disabilities can be discriminated in the employment arena, and making sure that there are protections for those individuals can be very important to make sure that they can maintain the jobs that we've worked so hard to provide training and internships for from that standpoint. It's hard to rank that in terms of where that fits into other places, but certainly the protections are important.
Right. And we passed a law 2 years ago on back to MedConnect for a second, gradually phasing out all income and asset tests. And that's something, by the way, I'm sure we would love to do for Husky C as well. It's not just MedConnect. I'm discouraged to see that the governor has recommended walking that back in the budget this year. And hopefully we will prevail upon him to reconsider, and we'll try to do something on Husky C as well. But I'll pass it back to my good co-chair.
And I think with that, just from the MedConnect standpoint, clarity for individuals who might, for individuals with intellectual disabilities who might fall back from MedConnect to traditional Husky C once they stop working, having better clarity on what happens to the retirement accounts that were exempted and what the distributions from those look like. That's an important piece because many families are scared to participate because they can't find information on what happens to that asset and income once they exit that program.
Thank you. I am sure I've been told this, but information hits at different points. Did you say that we are the only state that is below the $2,000 asset limit in the country?
We are the only state. New Hampshire used to be at $1,800. They've now moved to $2,400.
Okay.
We're the only state below that.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Any other questions? Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony with us. I think it's very helpful. It's extremely complex, and you did a phenomenal job of walking us through the process. I would just ask, if you haven't already, just to share that so that we could review it. Because as you were speaking, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this could be a flow chart of like, as this occurs, depending on whatever that status outcome is, then it could either go in this direction or this direction. And I think when we go back home to our districts and we're having conversations with our constituents, not just our colleagues up here, to be able to responsibly speak about, right,
Sure.
the issue, because then that helps when we have, more of our community members helping us and supporting why we need to change this so that we are able to reduce barriers for everyone, but especially with, it's very discouraging for me for how difficult this process has been for the person themselves and also for their caretakers or for their family members that are watching them struggle with this particular issue. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I think, Christine, we can send this out afterwards. What? No. So yeah. I believe that we can have all this testimony is all written, and I believe that we can make it available afterwards.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, one more question.
I'm sorry, State Rep Nolan. So we're the lowest. Just out of curiosity, what is the next level that someone is at? That if we were to say, okay, we're not the lowest because we upgraded it, because we probably can't become the number one for whatever reason they're trying to say. But what is the next level that a community or a state is at that we're below?
It's a great question. There are several states in the $3,000 to $4,000 range.
Okay.
North Dakota is $3,000. New Hampshire is $2,500. Maryland is $2,500. District of Columbia is $4,000. South Carolina is $9,090. New York is $32,396, and California is $130,000.
So is that in your testimony that you?
That's written. I have that available when we send that out. The individual states, the numbers will be available.
Okay, that would be.
But I think the key is tying to it to at least the SSI limit, so that if the federal government tends to increase that, there's been some lobbying to do that because it hasn't changed since 1989. That at least if we're below the federal limit for SSI, that we get to at least that, so we don't run into the same problem we did in this instance.
Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. And I do appreciate all of you here. Though I might have to step out a little early. I'm just grateful that you're here speaking on behalf of those you're speaking on behalf of. So thank you.
Thank you. Oop, I am sorry. One more online. Representative Case, go right ahead.
Thank you. And I apologize I'm not there in person, but this is a great conversation to have. And having lived this with my brother who passed away in 2016, it was $1,600 then. And because of his SSDI and other things that came in, he only made $7 a week. But we had to actively downspend him every month in order to stay with his Title 19 status. And if anybody actually knows what it is to downspend, it's pretty difficult process because there's only certain things you can spend the money on, but you can't just donate things that you want to get rid of. You have to get rid of them. And it is a process that goes on and is watched monthly. And as soon as you trigger over that 1600 and you have savings, you risk losing your Title 19. And I was dealing with this when he was in CTH homes back 2010 through 2016. So for somebody who didn't need much, he did have too much because of his federal money that was coming in. So thank you for coming forward. We've been working on this since I've been here 14 years, and I hope we can make a move on it because it is a difficult task for families to have to manage and handle. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next we'll hear from Deirdre Toole.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Council for Developmental Services. I'm an educator in Stonington for over 40 years, and I've had the privilege of working with individuals with disabilities and their families in many roles in and out of the classroom. This work has led me to my current position as special education transition counselor and facilitator of numerous vocational and social programs for these individuals in our town. But what these students and families have taught me really can't be put into words, but I will always be an advocate for helping them to be included in our community in a purposeful and meaningful way. I want to thank Commissioner Sheff and the Department of Developmental Services for all they tirelessly do for our individuals and families. Connecticut should be proud of how much DDS has done to ensure that individuals with special needs in our state are given opportunities to live a full and meaningful life. The reason I'm here today, though, is to talk about two voluntary safety programs that I feel have not received the attention they deserve, and to ensure we are doing everything we can to promote the safety of our most vulnerable population in an equitable way across our state. The first is the Yellow Envelope Program, and the second is the Linked Autism Safety Project. As many of you know, Connecticut has initiated the Green, Blue, and now new Yellow Envelope Program, and all as part of a coordinated statewide effort to provide safety, communication, and understanding during interactions between individuals with disabilities and first responders. Each envelope has a specific purpose. The green envelope, which some of you have seen, is to support individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. The blue envelope is to support individuals with autism spectrum disorder. And the brand new, as of a few weeks ago, yellow envelope is to support individuals with cognitive impairments and physical disabilities. This also comes with accessories, if I can say that word. A bracelet, which voluntarily you can wear, a decal to put on your car window or your home window, and there's also some other materials that come with it as well. Each envelope, when presented to a first responder, contains information about the individual and can help make the interaction with the first responder more positive for all involved. A few weeks ago, I was in Hartford, right here actually, for the exciting launch of the Yellow Envelope Program. I want to give a huge shout out to the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, and the many legislators and dedicated individuals who helped create this wonderful program. The Yellow Envelope Program is here, but we need your support today. I learned recently that though the envelope program is in existence, there is very limited money to pay for the envelopes. So yes, we have some envelopes in the DMVs and the police departments, but not all the police departments. I feel it is important that we have an equitable distribution of these envelopes and we get them in the hands of people that need it. Having the DMVs and police stations is great, but many of my parents do not go to the DMV except once every 5 years, and they don't go to the police station all that often. We need to get these into the school systems, to the community partners, to pediatricians, to libraries, and of course, to DDS and DDS caseworkers. That is so important. Today on my way here, I stopped at a local police station department to get a blue envelope, which I didn't have handy on me. When I went in, I talked to the officer, the community officer, and I asked him what he knew about the yellow envelope. He said, "Oh, we've had the yellow envelope here for many, many years." I said, "That's funny because it just came out a few weeks ago." And he told me this is their yellow envelope. It's the yellow dot envelope for important papers, and I can use this because it's for people 55 and over. So now I have my very own yellow envelope. How confusing will that be if I have somebody in the car and there's two yellow envelopes? So the reason I'm really here today is because I feel very strongly that I'm going to give you some information today, but I want to throw it to a quarterback. I'm not sure who the quarterback or quarterbacks will be, but I'm hoping somebody here will catch it and make this program. All these programs come from a state level, no matter who created them, and as wonderful as they are. And another program I'm going to talk about should be coming from a state level, because over the years I've worked with the CAS Autism Safety System, I've worked with Bring Me Back Home, I've worked with ALEC, all these envelopes, and then there's the purple alert, and my parents are deer in headlights looking at me saying, what? So I think, again, we're duplicating. There's 2 yellow envelopes now. I think we can get a better job at a state level, having somebody manage all these colors and coordinating them to each town equitably. Okay, so that's really my message. The other program I'd like to talk about today is so important, and that's the Linked Autism Safety Project. I had the privilege of having the founder of this program, who some of you know, Ashley McLean, here with us virtually today. This safety project was created by Ashley to help address the gaps in disability awareness and to provide training for first responders. She has partnered with numerous police, fire, and emergency response agencies across the state to provide training, consultation, and resources that support neurodiverse individuals. She actually is training, couldn't be here today because she's actually training a police department in this program. Besides training the officers, the program also provides an online registration process and sensory kits for officers, so local police departments will have information regarding an individual's special needs before they arrive at the scene, and tools to help them interact in a positive way. Ashley has an impressive background. Her degree is in psychology. She's a certified instructor through the Connecticut Police Officers Standards Trainings and Officer of Emergency Medical Services, as well as teacher for Connecticut Alliance to Benefit Law Enforcement. She has a long, long list of other impressive credentials, but most importantly, she is the proud mother of 2 children, one with a diagnosis of autism. Her son's experiences, which I can't get into today because it'll take too long, have brought her to where she is today. She is a tireless volunteer and advocate for many. She travels and volunteers to train police officers, and I believe she's up to 40 police departments in our state, training these officers in neurodiversity awareness and providing information on the registry and sensory kits. So today I'm asking that you help poor Ashley, this one mother, volunteering on her own, going across this state to make the Linked Autism Safety Project a program that is in every town, so that no matter what town you live in, we can all sleep at night knowing that our at-risk individuals will be in the registration system, and all of our police officers will be trained, not just some, thus helping avoid tragedies down the road. I'm not a technology person, but I do believe somebody here is, and I think there is a way through technology we can connect our police departments and make sure every town is using this system. So important. Many years ago, and I have many stories I could tell you today, but I don't want to take your time about safety and terrible things that have happened over the years to students that I've worked with because there wasn't a safety system set up. But I'm going to tell you one story today about Billy, and Billy's parents have given me permission to tell this story. Billy was 17 and one of my students at the time, a really hefty, strong boy who loved to write, loved to go bowling and spending time with his family, and he loved to go out to eat. His favorite meal, and still to this day, is pizza and milk. Billy's intellectual disability and autism have been a challenge for Billy and his parents, but with their love and support of the school system, vocational programs, and DDS, Billy was making great progress. Billy, as many on the spectrum, liked his schedule and liked his routine to stay the same. Change one thing, and you often might witness what mom would call a meltdown. Billy's family always went to pizza every Thursday night to the same pizza place. But on this particular Thursday night, mom had a conflict and they could not go. For Billy, this meant his world was falling apart. He proceeded to destroy every videotape. Some of you have heard of videotapes, I'm sure still, in the house, as well as run out to the car and can start to pound on the hood. At 17, from a distance, he looked like a man out of control. As mom was de-escalating Billy, a neighbor came out to ask what was going on. Dad explained to the neighbor that Billy had autism and was just upset. The neighbor understood and went inside. However, another neighbor called 911. And just then a police car came speeding down the street. Billy was terrified. "They're coming to take me away," Billy shouted. And then he became very agitated. The police officer went toward Billy to restrain him, but mom, and I can't tell you what she did, but mom was able to stop the police officer, being a mother bear and her cub being about to get hurt. She stopped that police officer from getting to Billy. And to make a very long story short, Mom was able to finally get the police officer to understand that Billy had autism, and things finally got resolved peacefully. However, now Billy was petrified of police officers, and his parents were distraught. This is just one of many stories I could tell you. What a difference it would have made if Billy had been registered in Ashley's Linked Autism Safety Project, and the officer knew before he arrived that Billy had an intellectual disability, loved pizza, and also had autism, and that had arrived with a sensory kit and the training needed. I want to thank you very much for letting me speak today. I want to thank you for your time and all your dedication and all you do. I really hope today that there's some quarterback or quarterbacks out there that can receive these messages and help the Yellow Envelope program, which is just paper, I think, get in the hands of all the families and individuals it needs. I, Deidre, could go back to Stonington and find a way to get those yellow envelopes, but I realize that's not equitable, because if I find a way to get them, there's other towns in our state that are not getting them, and they shouldn't just be at DMV, and they shouldn't just be at police departments. I work in special ed. We identify every individual in our town with a disability, and we can figure out what color they need and how to get that to them. The Linked Autism Safety Project, Ashley, please try to help Ashley find a way to connect all these towns. It doesn't seem fair to me that you're in one town and have it, the next town over doesn't have it. And what if your child happens to go shopping in the next town? Something bad could happen. So Ashley is with me here today. I'm going to end today with a very quick WFSB, very 2.5-minute video, and Ashley's in that video as well. And then Ashley is here on Zoom, available for questions. I'm available for questions as well, and I do have some handouts available at the end if you would like them. So we're going to show this quick clip from WFSB about the Yellow Envelope program. And if this doesn't work, that's okay. We're okay. You're getting there.
Now leading the way when it comes to making sure folks who have disabilities are feeling safe and heard when dealing with first responders. It's called the Yellow Envelope Initiative, and Channel 3's Caitlin Nuclo explains why advocates say this was so needed.
Like most moms, Ashley McLean is her kid's biggest advocate.
My son is on the spectrum, and I originally had reached out to my local police department probably about 3 years ago at this point, just to let them know that my son was on the spectrum. He has some unique differences because of his diagnosis. And then from there, I laugh about it now. The police chief said to me, watch, this is going to become something bigger than you expected. And he was right.
And that led to McLean creating Linked, the Autism Safety Project, which helps foster better communication between those on the spectrum and first responders.
And I just thought it was important for the two worlds to come together to better understand one another.
And thanks to her hard work, they have. Recently, she was also instrumental in working with state agencies to get the new Yellow Envelope program passed.
We want to create an environment where first responders feel comfortable interacting with individuals with disabilities, but also the individuals themselves with these disabilities are comfortable interacting with first responders.
This program is voluntary, and the idea behind it is that someone who has a physical or a mental disability, maybe had a traumatic brain injury, even ADHD, can pick up one of these envelopes, keep it inside their car with some of their important documents, and then they can hand it over to a first responder in an emergency or a traffic stop. There's some instructions on the front for the person with the disability, and then on the back, there are best practices for the first responder. It's similar to the blue and green envelope programs already in place here in Connecticut. The blue envelope is for people with autism, and the green one is for those deaf or hard of hearing.
There was a large population of individuals that were missing, and that's what the yellow envelope represents. Those individuals that have cognitive, intellectual, and physical disabilities that can now articulate this to first responders in a discreet, comfortable way if they're having an interaction.
Hundreds of these envelopes have already been given out in just the last month. You can find them at the DMV or at some local police stations. where McLean's organization is also working, meeting with more than 40 departments across the state, training first responders locally and now even nationally.
I think there's always work to be doing. I think this is a first step in the right direction, and it's showing that the state of Connecticut is willing to listen to our disability community and want to support them.
Support that can make everyone feel safer. Caitlin Nuclo, Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
Just because they're identical.
So I want to thank Ashley again for all she's doing as a volunteer. She's amazing. I believe she is here on Zoom to answer questions if you have them. So I'm not sure if that was.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing about both programs. Representative Shake or Representative, yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to check to see, is Ashley available on Zoom?
She is on Zoom.
Okay, great. Perfect. So questions for Ashley or for myself, I'm happy to answer.
Oh, first I want to say thank you for coming up and all the work that you've done. And Ashley also, all the work that you have done. With the yellow envelope of what you were describing, when you were talking about how each municipal could essentially, figure out what would best work for that community, is that what I was hearing in terms of color coding the actual envelope, or do you want us for the yellow envelope program? Because that seems to be an issue, right? Because depending on what town you're in, you might have another yellow envelope that's available that has nothing to do
Right.
with the initiative that you are saying is actually helpful and working. So for us to best advocate for what it is specifically that you are looking for, that quarterback moment, could you just reiterate what that suggestion would be? Is it a state level of that changing so that no matter what municipal we're in? Because I'm also thinking about if it's not just the local police department, it could be state troopers, right? It could be, you could have regional aid of, different, whether it's EMTs or it is police or fire, ambulance, that are actually going to that residence and then helping. So if you could just clarify what it is.
That's a great question.
Thank
and
you.
the two-part answer, I think we need to
Yes.
focus on the yellow envelope program right now. And I think there's definitely, I was told there's a very limited budget. And that's why when I asked, can I bring some back to my school system, they said there's no money for that. So I think for this to really, the new yellow envelope program to work for people with cognitive disabilities and physical disabilities, I think it would be better to be managed at a state level to make sure every town is getting, depending on the population, is getting the amount they need to whoever needs them. And we should recommend that it goes to human services, to schools, to pediatricians. That would be the recommendation. But I think it's
Municipal
better,
agent.
yep, to be managed by the state. The program has already been created, but it just needs, I think we just need some support and somebody to manage where it's going. In a perfect world, the second part of my answer is, in a perfect world, all these envelopes would live in the same office. And we would want to make sure everybody, if you're in an ambulance and your child has autism, they want to see the blue envelope just as much as a police officer. So I think all these colors, I mean, it can get confusing because sometimes you can have an intellectual disability and autism. So you might have two envelopes. I mean, I guess that's okay. The important thing is what's in the envelope is going to explain what a parent or guardian or that individual wants someone to know about them. They might have anxiety, whatever it is. So yes, I think the yellow envelope we need support to get that out there. And I personally, I'm not the expert you guys are. I think it's better to come from a state level to make sure it's equitable across the state of Connecticut.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ashley, and the entire council for your advocacy on this. Again, an implementation question, I guess, for Ashley. When you go around and, educate and outreach families about this, what are you hearing from families would be most helpful in this moment?
Absolutely. Good morning and thank you everyone for having me. I will apologize. I'm at a firehouse right now, so the alarm has been going off a lot this morning. So if you hear anything, everything's okay, but it might just be the fire alarm. When we meet with families, we're hearing that they need more access to these. Right now we are working with the Police Chiefs Association, Joint Fire Chiefs Council, EMS Advisory Board to get these envelopes to all first responders in the state of Connecticut. DMV does have them, but as mentioned, a lot of families don't have the access to get to these locations at all times. However, they are with clinical providers on a regular basis. They are at treatment centers. They are at school on a regular basis. So being able to have better access to these would be beneficial to the families. Also, law enforcement was very aware of the blue and the green prior to the implementation of the yellow envelope. But not many fire and EMS were. So through Linked, we're trying as much as possible to educate the fire and EMS side of it as well too, because they will be interacting, especially if there are individuals that have behavioral concerns. Most often, EMS is, a provider of transportation. So being able to share this information with educating and having the fire and EMS side aware of it too has been very important from the parent perspective.
Thank you.
Hope that answers.
So access to these resources, it sounds like DSS, we kind of know at least one population, who the providers are, and we could do a better job of maybe asking DSS with a small outreach, public service announcement budget to share these resources more upfront with our families, but also with our towns. I would think the clerks might be a great source to be distributing these envelopes to, and maybe updating. I'm not sure if we do have municipal agents also across every town, so that is another source that I think could be utilized. So yeah, let's take that back and work on how best with our agencies to distribute some resources to families. But thank you. This is a huge step, and we always want to partner with our local providers, our local first responders, our local certainly law enforcement, and keep educating about community service to the community that we serve. And that means everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. And then I have questions about the Linked Autism Safety Project. So did we approved that in legislation here? Is that correct? But now, or did we even have to do that in legislation? Like what is?
So if you
Yeah.
don't mind, Rep.
Sure.
Gilchrist, this is Ashley here. Linked is a nonprofit that I started 3 years ago as a mom of a child on the spectrum. And then it has grown from department to department speaking about it, if you will. So it's within several local municipal entities throughout the state, police, fire, and EMS, where we provide an array of resources, whether it's the voluntary registration form, the sensory kits, or the training. There's no specific legislation, around Linked, if you will. It's programming that we as an organization have been providing standalone, basically, and just working with various municipalities. We're also teaching at the several police academies, the fire academy, and working with EMS providers throughout the state.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay. But yes, would be ideal if we could get that across the state. Okay. All right. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you
very
both.
much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, we'll hear from Pam Donnaroma. Come on over. Please.
Is this already on? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to submit our concerns regarding transportation barriers faced by individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are employed in competitive and community-based jobs. This is one of the council's 7 principles. Our concern around transportation options provided through the state for whom DDS serves. So Futures operates social enterprises that support integrated employment across Connecticut, including Good Cause Gifts retail stores, the Kitchen at Futures, which is a commercial kitchen offering catering and 500 meals per week to senior centers, and community cafes located at the Hospital for Special Care, the Jewish Community Center, and the Hartford Public Library. In these real workplaces, they're not day programs. We employ 40 individuals with IDD that are earning competitive wages and receive individualized supports as needed. Transportation remains one of the most significant barriers to sustaining this employment, and for us even to go beyond and hiring other people. Some of the operational realities is these businesses operate with fixed schedules, customer expectations, and regulatory requirements. In the retail stores, for example, the stores can't close early or leave the sales floor unstaffed so a supervisor can drive an employee home without risking safety and financial loss. In the kitchens and cafes and the food service operations, the chefs and supervisors can't stop production, shut down ovens mid-process, interrupt baking schedules, and complete sanitation solely to provide transportation. Doing so jeopardizes food safety compliance, host site relationships, and business sustainability. Expecting employers or supervisors to absorb transportation responsibilities threatens both the job and the enterprise. So some of the systematic barriers is that transportation challenges are compounded by the direct support staff who often lack reliable and insured vehicles. Housing changes for individuals living in group homes that disrupt established routes. So sometimes somebody living in a group home, the group home will decide to move them to another apartment, and transportation becomes a challenge for their competitive employment site. Public transportation systems may be inaccessible without training and monitoring. And there's also limitations in some of the rideshare solutions. Rideshare services such as Uber and Lyft are often suggested but present real barriers. Families face challenges using these services through the fiscal intermediaries. Many individuals with IDD don't have credit cards or debit cards, making direct use impossible. And there's also some challenges around geographic accessibility, priority around logistic locations. Some of the Uber drivers, if they get a call to go to West Hartford and at the same time going into Hartford, they choose to take the transportation route in West Hartford. However, potential remedies include a voucher program, maybe a prepaid or restricted use card, or other alternatives that ensure accountability without relying on personal credit cards. So some of the transportation solutions to consider: one promising solution is leveraging school-approved vehicles with vetted V-endorsed drivers. These drivers, end up having background checks, are periodically drug tested, and through contracts or partnerships with nonprofits or transportation providers, these individuals or agencies can be contracted. The state-approved vehicles are insured, and they could provide safe employment transportation, and also some consistency in pricing and accessibility outside traditional school hours without creating a new infrastructure. So in conclusion, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, they're working in stores, kitchens, cafes, hospitals, community centers, and libraries across the state. They're capable, reliable employees whose jobs are often jeopardized by transportation barriers beyond their control. So I urge the legislature to prioritize the practical, low-cost or no-cost solutions that are outlined in the Connecticut DOT regional transportation studies, so employment for individuals with IDD is not only achievable, but sustainable. We don't need another study.
Great, thank you. No, we
Just
don't.
added that up.
You're right, though. It's been studied. We know what we need to do. Any questions from folks? I guess, and I know we should know this. Well, thank you for all the work you do. Having many of these businesses in West Hartford, it's fantastic. So thank you. Have we done anything in more recent years, transportation-wise? I felt like 5001 did do something. And so I guess just
Is
want to
it-
know, why has that not worked, what we attempted to
Ah,
do?
Christine's going to talk about that.
Okay.
They are using Uber and Lyft recently, but these still present challenges.
Yes, okay,
Go ahead, Christine.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I'll take over on part 2 of that.
Okay, wonderful.
So I may not have all the answers, however. Thanks to funding from HB 5001, a committee's survey and report was headed and completed by the State Department of Transportation. The results were published in July 2025. The report is titled Transportation Needs and Non-Medical Transportation Services for People with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Study. The report found gaps in service and the need for funding more transportation for employment and medical appointments. Leisure transportation is primarily not available to most individuals for recreation. A committee to further study implementation of modifications and improvements was suggested. Safety is the #1 surveyed issue why individuals and families do not feel comfortable using public transport. Most families are comfortable with a dedicated transport provider or a group of other IDD individuals traveling together on a bus or minibus or direct transport. Consistency in drivers and staffing is a key issue identified. This is due to the necessity for routine when working with an individual who has communication or behavioral issues. Having said that, there are a few ways to improve this until more comprehensive issues can be addressed to the system. If there were a DOT staff member in an office dedicated and trained to handle a call-in from an IDD individual or their family, self-identifying who could track and speak to the individual in real time and make sure that they got to their workplace, home, or provider's location, that would free up families from worry and allow them to be able to work undistracted unless notified of an issue or an anomaly. There are some inexpensive solutions that could make a difference for many. Providing funding for transportation providers and asking all future funded providers to install tracking apps for users to sign into to know when a bus or a van will be arriving would keep individuals inside, safe, and warm while waiting to know when the transport will arrive. It would also ease anxiety for individuals, their families, and staff to know if the transport is delayed. This anxiety relief can be very helpful to behavior and to keeping those catching a ride warm until they know the transport is near. The use of this system in other cities is documented in the report. Another solution would be to install inexpensive solar-powered heaters in bus stops to be used when cold temperatures exist. These would be minimal and would impact those who take public transport most to catch or exchange buses. This has been done in other states, and it can allow individuals who often have trouble staying warm or regulating temperature not to trigger other medical issues which are more expensive to treat. These heaters can be set to timers to discourage overnight usage. These minor adjustments or expenditures could make the systems already in place more effective, safe, and user-friendly to the IDD community. Transportation, like an earned paycheck, builds self-esteem and community participation and contribution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is very helpful. I appreciate it. Representative Case has a question.
Thank you. I want to go back on transportation issues with 5001. I think that in here too, there was a study completed with DDS, DOT, DSS. The money was pulled out at the last minute with the budget. It's $250,000. It was for certain geographic areas. We're still working on it. The study's done. We just need to go forward with it. It was something at the last minute.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. The tracker, again, seems like a low-hanging fruit, but
I think that's something that could be easily implemented that could make a huge difference.
yeah.
And some of the providers apparently do use it. I think they're more the private providers, but some of the statewide ones, like the Dial-A-Ride, et cetera, might be able to use it. When they're delayed and greatly delayed in the weather, it makes it very difficult for a population.
Thank you. Any additional questions from folks? Okay.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. And in conclusion, I just would like to wrap up a few things. Living under the $1,600 limit is oppressive for families that are already extra busy. Please tie it to the Social Security or to a Social Security limit or higher, but not limited to SSA in case that goes away. Also, the statewide registry for yellow envelopes. Again, as you mentioned, it seems like low-hanging fruit. It's something that we can coordinate and make. If we save one life, we've done something good today. And also just continue to make the transportation updates and changes, because generally what does work for someone with a disability works for everyone. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And thank you all for committing your time to this work. I know it's volunteer and it comes from your heart. So thank you so much. And thank you for presenting us with the information. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.